All right, let's get to the brass tacks. So we have our first postcard. Love sent from Los Angeles, California. It looks good. I don't think you need the comma in this case because they're on two separate lines. But that's a nitpick for later. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of this. It does look good. Let's see what's happening here. So first things first, let's check our image size. We've got 5.6 inches by 4.25 inches. That's perfect. And our resolution is how many pixels per inch? That did not look right. It is not right. I wanted this at 150 pixels per inch. I do not know why that is where it is. So like I said, have resample on. Automatic will work fine for this. 150, and then boom, you'll get those 840 pixels by 638 pixels per inch. So this is the size I was looking for. Not sure why that went wrong. This is such an absolutely strange resolution to boot, so that's kind of an unusual thing. Heads up on the resample, we have automatic, but then we have and it's supposed to pick depending on what you're doing, but sometimes you'll want to play around with this. You have preserve detail. This works for when you're making things larger, and they have a new version of that, and I think this one works a little bit better if you have the latest version of Photoshop. Bicubic smoother enlargement, that's the old school one. They've had that around forever. It's the one that usually gets picked by automatic if you're upscaling. Bicubic sharper for if you're reducing. Automatic should pick that one under reduction. Now this depends on the version of Photoshop. Sometimes they'll pick different things. If you're noticing when you do a resize, you get these waves in your gradient, these sort of posterized effects where there's a sudden jump. Go ahead and try bicubic smoother, which should help a little bit better. If you want to keep hard edges, you have nearest neighbor. And then you have bilinear, which since I did not think I'd be talking about this, I honestly do not remember off the top of my head. It has something to do with the mathematics behind it. But if you're interested, shoot me an email and I will talk about how all of these work. I think they're covered a little later in the class. It's been a few months since I finished recording and uploading all those videos though, so I might have glossed over those later as well. So just let me know if you're curious. So do make sure the resolution is the correct size for the submission, which is 150 pixels per inch. So watch out on that one. We definitely have enough layers. We have more than 3 layers. Plenty of masks. From this position, the masks look fine. And that's really what matters. If you're having a situation where if you zoom in, you start noticing weird stuff, yeah, clean that up if you can, but keep in mind too, where are they going to see it? There's one thing, if I thought this was a power line, if this is actually mask issue, then that is one thing that should be cleaned up. Let's check real quick. Yeah, that's a mask issue. And that one I did see from distance, but most likely, like myself, hello, brush tool, please. Oops. Oh, I have this huge. There we go. Most likely the artist, while working on this, also made the same mistake I did and thought that was a power line on it. So want to clean that one up. If you want to get really into nitty picky little details, not having this feather fade would be good on this vulture. Kind of like that. I'm just noticing the irony of this. It's got this yellow water going through and a vulture perched up on anything. And it's like a mega mutant vulture that's 1,000 times the size of the normal vulture. That's all pretty fun. So is it legible is a question. This is definitely legible, all this text. This text is a little hard to see, and that might just be good to level up the image that is working on that. And I know why you, of course, did this. By the way, you shouldn't need this mask because you're also doing the clipping mask. So the clipping mask will take care of it at that point. You might want to have leveled this just so that it's a little brighter. I honestly do mean level. We'll be talking about curves very soon. And I do love the curves assignment. I think that it's just a great way to really learn how to do this kind of stuff. But levels is fine too. I know a lot of you have been working with that, and that's absolutely acceptable. The destructive way to do it is to go to Image Adjustments Levels. I'll be showing you a non-destructive way to do that with Smart Objects. And then you just level it up a bit so that it's brighter. And then once you've done that, Love sent from Los Angeles, you can see things a little bit clearer. Now, given that they have these big cement blocks and the vulture going on, it's pretty clear to me that they want this to have like a dreary effect. So I'm not going to comment on the drop shadows. I was going to say that they're a bit dark, they're a bit far away. It causes discomfort when looking at it, but I think that's the point of this piece. So good job on that. Let's take a look at these other masks. Good work. That is, by the way, Hobbs. He likes to comment if I'm talking to someone other than him. He's not a big fan on that. I like how he created the sun going on. Good job on that. All right. Overall, excellent work. I've cleaned up this mask a little bit better. I would have leveled this up. This is a lot of, again, it seems as though you intended this to be dreary because you've got a vulture, you've got cement. It's an irony on it. So this sky looking so unappealing in these colors, good job on that. I was going to comment, you probably want to brighten up the sky, start adding in some depth to it, that sort of thing, but that wouldn't go well with the rest of the image. So it looks like you've done an excellent job sticking to theme on this. Good work on that. Might be worthwhile to, and I don't really want to play with your text too much, you'll notice this alert. It means I don't have this font. So if I start doing transformations, it will claim that, hey, these are missing. It will use existing pixel data. I'm going to tell it okay. So it's going to really mess up your text. So it's going to look terrible when I do this, but since you have your font, it will look better. I would just increase the size on this, Los Angeles, California, so that it fits. Even though it means that the Los Angeles starts before the love scent, I think that would be fine in this case. It still remains legible, takes up some more of this empty space, kind of fits everything in. Now, in my case, again, since it doesn't have the font, you'll see how horribly pixelated everything became. And you won't have that issue if you resize it. So, yeah, kudos. Looks like you hit all the main points. Let me check. 150. Oh, well, there was that issue. 150 pixels per inch. That was incorrect. You have 3 or more copyrighted images. Great. You have 3 more layers. Perfect. 3 or more masks. Great. The masks are well crafted, and you've got your text. Good job. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, here we go. And we've got Keeping It Weird in Portland, Oregon. And let's do a quick check on this one. We have the image size. This is odd. It's almost the correct size. It's just a little bit off for some reason. Otherwise, everything's good there. Correct resolution, good. Correct width. Height's slightly off. It should be 4.25. Looks like most likely there's an extra pixel or something in there that got resized. We have plenty of layers. A lot of hard work was done on the clipping mask to create Portland with all of these attractions inside of it. I really appreciate that. Which means all of your masks are set, and yeah, we've got it going on. So overall, you meet the brief. Everything's set on that, so don't worry about that. Now let's talk about ways that you could improve this image. First off, the Keeping It Weird in Portland, Oregon, I can see that you did a sampling where the yellow was very similar to the prominent yellow in the image, which overall is generally a good idea. However, in this case, I would have selected something more like the silver from this Darth Vader shirt. The reason being that this yellow is very similar to the yellow background, which makes it hard to read. It's mostly legible because of this very crisp, dark drop shadow that you applied, so good job on that. But I think it would have been quite a bit better. This is going to change the font to something insane. Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and just make it impact. Again, I don't have the fonts that everybody has. So I'm just going to do impact, and you can see that it doesn't look as good as it was before. But just to give you an idea of the coloring I was talking about, I'm going to come in here with the eyedropper tool or not. I apparently have gone eyedropper tool blind, and I'm just going to select like this silver color. All right. And when I did that, I managed to deselect my text. So I'm just going to select all that. What I should have done was click up here, not go for the eyedropper. That would have allowed me to do the color picker, as you can see. But what I'm going to do instead is you may not have noticed, it subtly shifted as soon as I realized my mistake, the color I selected to the background. So I could flip it to the foreground. And in doing so, get the V tool, ta-da, it applied it. Now, this said, I'm squinting my eyes. This is still a little close tonally to the yellow, so something even a little bit brighter would probably be good. So I'm just going to go in there. I'm going to pick this color that you've got right in here. That's a little bit better. So essentially just not that yellow because the color value of it is so similar to the background, makes it hard to read. Now I'm just going to step back in time a little bit so that we can go in. The next step is the Portland, Oregon. There are a few issues going on with that. Or rather, I should say Portland itself. You'll notice it's difficult to read this, especially in this area. Again, the tonality is similar to the shirt on these two letters. There are a few things you could do. You could flip things around so that they go through. So that the colors and values of the different images are in more of a contrast to the background image. Now, that said, you could just do a white outline around this. That would also take care of it pretty quickly. And I should be able to do that right on the word Portland. Hope this version supports that. Let's see. Here we go. It does. Excellent. I'm just going to toss on a stroke. And I'm going to set that stroke to white. And I'm going to shrink it down because 10 pixels is serious overkill. There we go. And immediately it is more legible. Before, after. That easy, and you're good to go. The other ways that you could approach this is you could add color tint to all of it, but in this case, I'm not sure I'd recommend it. Adding the color tint would lose the interesting photographs that you've taken inside of here. But if you did want to do that, you could do a color overlay straight in here. We haven't talked about blending modes yet. We will do that a little bit later in the semester. And when we get to that, what I'm doing will make more sense. But you can tint it. Oh, right, the yellow in the background. Let's go for it's more of an orange. The opposite of orange is kind of a teal color. So we'll do a blue. I'll just set it to soft light. And maybe even just a bit of a subtle change. All right. So I don't know if you want to go that far, but it increases visibility. And, honestly, if we were adding a tint, I'd probably change the color here on the other text so that it matches in on it. So I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm going to group them all together by selecting all of them so that they're in a group. And then on the group, I'm going to apply the color overlay effect again. And this time, I'm just going to do a multiply, though. A little brighter, please. Oops. There we go. Somewhere in there. Yeah. So I don't like how dark that is because if we were doing that, we'd want to also apply the same stroke. Now, keep in mind, this is going to look bad because I did the group and it includes the drop shadow inside of the text, which means that this outline is going around the text on things. So there are a couple of ways to avoid that. The fastest way would be to do the outline on the individual layers. But again, if I did that, it will risk changing the font. Actually, in this version, it might not. Let's check. These are all version... No, this one will do it. These are all version-dependent things. But perhaps we could circumvent that. Yeah, there we go. So we can circumvent it. All right. So again, the issue with version-dependent work. However, now you'll notice that the overlay from the previous layer is affecting the effect of the layer below it. And we're going to touch on ways around that later in the semester when we get to blending modes, but it becomes a whole thing with some background as to why all of that does what it does. If you're very curious and you want to skip ahead and find out ways around that now, go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll talk about that in general. But in this case, this situation is avoidable just by working on the original file or having the original font. You can apply the white outline to it, which would make it much more visible and allow you to see everything quite a bit better, as you can see from the Oregon going on, even though it's blue instead of white. All right, so those would be my suggestions on that. The last piece that I'd probably mention is the background itself. Unless you have a really compelling reason to do it, it's usually a good idea to have things not in the exact center of your image, because that's such a powerful place to put something. And the reason I say powerful is because it's the first place your eye is going to look. you'll look at this overall shape and zero in before glancing over everything else. They have things called eye heat maps, which are generated by pointing a camera at the viewer of a piece of art, putting the art up on the screen, and then having the camera follow the eye as it moves around and determine what points are looked at first, and then which points are looked at the longest. And through this science, we have determined that yes, we do focus immediately on things like the center of an image. We do things like look at faces. We do things like look at where things are pointing. So if you move it over just a little bit, we'll hit the Portland instead, but we'll drag up to the face, and then we'll go over, and then we've got all this text, and we'll start reading that, and we'll go in. It'll make quite a difference in the layout. So in order to do that, though, you need a slightly larger image, or you need to spend some time extending this image with your various fill commands and tools, and we'll talk about those later in the semester as well on how to do something like make this larger. All right, so those are my suggestions on it. Overall, good job. Good work. I like this photo. Did you take this in Oregon? This is interesting. I'm very curious as to the logistics of making a bagpipe fire, launch fire out of it. So that's something that's got me curious as well. All right. So again, good work. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next submission. Before we do, one quick mention. You'll notice that this was not named correctly. This says Postcard 150 PPI. That is not what I wanted you to name this file. If we go back to the class and go all the way back over to the syllabus, and scroll down on this, you'll see that the way, and even when I did the assignments in the videos, I mentioned doing it this way. What you want is last name, first name, assignment number. So in this case, it would be 2. Some people put 02, that's fine. Last name, first name, and then the iteration. So if you had like 5 iterations of these going on, just increase the number. I'll grade the last one. That's fine. So if you turn in a couple of them, I'll just grade whichever one has the highest number on the end. But don't do things like just start making up your own naming convention. This becomes a problem when I start trying to find specific files through my system. It becomes a whole thing. So don't forget to name things properly as we go on throughout the semester. All right. On that note, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, this is fun. Come and visit Jellystone National Park. And it's even got the Yogi Bear, some Hanna-Barbera. Not mess up your hard work. There we go. We've got Yogi and Boo Boo. And we've got... okay, we've got Boo Boo with the tiny tie. That is too funny. All right. Good job. I dig it. All right, let's take a look and see if you've met the requirements. We have the correct size. You did turn in the wrong resolution. This is the working resolution, not the submission resolution. Remember, again, this is just the recommended working size, but the required submission size is at 150. So restore pages. What? Ignore that. So again, the way you want to do it is have resample on, so that it will maintain the height and width that you've already carefully put in. You just drop that to 150, press OK, and you're done. That's it. That's all you have to do, and save it out from there. All right. So that aside, it's the correct size, it's the correct ratios there, 4.25 by 5.6. It's just the wrong resolution, which means it's the wrong pixels. On that note, we have plenty of layers, and looks like we've got enough masks there as well. Hey, Boo Boo. All right. And anything, let me take a look. Good job with these folders. It's quite nice. We've got clipping masks. We've got masks. We've got plenty of masks. All right. Everything's set. At first glance, your masks look fine. I'm getting a little long-winded, so I'm trying to avoid that. If you feel as though I didn't give you enough details and information on something, then feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to go into more depth over anything. So yeah, just let me know. I do notice that there is a slight issue that you've got some empty space there. You don't want that, especially when you go printing. I think the background's probably just a little bit off. I don't think I moved that, so just be nudged down. But let's make sure that I did not mess that up. We'll go all the way back up to open. Sure enough, yeah, it's just a little off. Watch out for that when you're going into print a piece for, your portfolio or to sell it. You don't want pieces sticking out there because the paper will show straight through. All right, so the Come and Visit is very, very, very hard to read, partially because of the really nice font that you have, and partially because the colors are of similar value to what's around them. So that gets a little hard. Again, you could just do a little hard to see. You could do an outline that would allow you to see it quite a bit better. Probably just a thin white outline. I might just mess with the colors a bit on it. It also couldn't hurt to make it a little bit bigger, but you would have to move Boo Boo down a little bit if you wanted to do that. So another thing you might want to watch out for when you do go to print, things that are close to the edge could get cut off. So you want to check what the bleed is on whatever you're printing. So you might want to nudge this up just a little bit and push this down just a little bit so that when you go in to have it printed as a postcard to sell it, you don't get people complaining that it got cut off at the top. But again, in order to do that, the first thing you need to do is grab Boo Boo. Oops. Oh, he has a nice color adjustment going on, so I failed to grab him. Fortunately, it's all grouped together. And you basically just slide him down a bit. I don't want him eye level with the person, the model that you have, because then he'd be looking straight at it. I'd prefer it to be a little off a bit there. Okay, we'll transform this. Again, I don't have this font, so it's not going to look like a very good transformation. So you have a couple of choices that you need to make at this point. Do you want it to go across the image so it looks like it's inside with the person, or do you want it to be small enough so that it still fits and looks like Come Visit is outside? So you'd have to take that into account when working on it. It's really up to you. And again, I'd add an outline to it. All right, that said, this is very clever. I got a kick out of it for sure. Again, I think an outline would be good on these. I like the color combination you have on the bottom a lot. These look like the kinds of 70s fonts and colors that you'd expect, and that works really well with the Hanna-Barbera cartoon going back to the 70s when they were very, very popular. They'd have things like the Cartoon Olympics. They had such a massive cast of characters that they could get away with having their own Olympics. It's pretty amazing. All right, well, I'm having some nostalgic feelings now. Good job on all this. I really like it. If you have any other questions or want some more advice on it, let me know. But otherwise, I think you did a pretty good job. I just play around with that text a little bit. It's a little tricky because I do love this font, but it's a little hard to read. And I think that having some outline in here would essentially just push it a bit so that you have more space between things like the gap in the Y and the S and all that. So it would be more visible. Okay, so yeah, good job. Let's go ahead and roll on down to the next one. As soon as I find my mouse, which has scrolled off the screen. Here we go. Okay, I like this one. So we have Greetings from Exoplanet C0615, which so there are a bunch of things I like about this, and let's talk about a few of them. First off, it looks like a postcard that was, carefully assembled on everything. It all looks like hand done traditional type stuff going in, like watercolors and pastels and that kind of stuff, and ink drawing of just something that is completely surreal. We've got some giant octopus thing attacking an old-timey ship that's small compared to the size of the buildings that are nearby. But we've got this big castle that's like sitting on these trees. We have way too many moons and planets and things in the background, and we've got a day scene that's lit, even though we've got a starry sky, like the atmosphere is all goofed up or something. This is a blast. The water is all wrong. Nice reflection, by the way, in it. The water is all wrong. We've got colors that we wouldn't see on Earth, and then you see that Greetings from Exoplanet. So good job. See You Soon has me a little concerned that I might be abducted by perhaps this squid creature. So all right, that aside, let's take a look at the mechanics here and check to make sure everything is going well. We've got image size. Oh, again, we need this at the working resolution. We don't need this at the working resolution. We need this at the submission resolution of 150 pixels per inch. So we've got to get that set. but the ratio was correct on it, so you got the size right on that. You have plenty of layers, plenty of masks. Your masks look good. Just by zooming in, I don't see any issues with it. Actually, this is what are we on? Third, fourth one. Great masks so far this semester. Even on the tricky shrubbery. Sometimes I'll have some semesters where the class is just struggling with masks, and this assignment becomes absolutely vital just to kind of be not only a refresher but get them up to speed. But so far, if you guys are sampling of what I'm in for this semester, I've got some good work ahead. Clever job using the mask gradient in order to create this this starry sky effect going in. Very smart on that. Notice that we have sky on both sides, and that the gradient is actually hiding the water from the original image. So well done. Yeah, I like this mask. You did a really good job on that mask. I appreciate the time in on that. A couple of suggestions. It might be fun, given almost the old-timey feel of this, to, instead of having a hard cut around this edge, I'm assuming we have, yeah, instead of having a hard cut to the edge here, it might be fun to go in and have rounded corners on that. And you might be asking, well, how do we do that inside of Photoshop? Illustrator would be pretty straightforward. Photoshop's a bit trickier. What I'm going to do is just expand this out. I've reset some stuff recently, and now things aren't quite where I remember them. But I'm just going to go to the shape, and I'm going to go to the rounded rectangle. I'm going to create a rounded rectangle. So I've got a rounded rectangle. And I forgot, though, before I did that, to set it, well, pixels is fine, I guess, but I'm drawing right over stuff. What I actually wanted was the selection, so let's do this. We'll do it in 2 steps. We'll do it right, from start to finish. Make a new layer. Select your colors for your gradient. I apparently have caps locks on, which is not what I want. If you ever get these little precision tools, see how I have this crosshair up here in the corner? Caps locks is probably on. Turning it off will bring you back your standard little image there. All right, so one color, flip over, other color. Okay, then we're going to grab our gradient tool, and that's G on the keyboard. I'm just going to draw across. So we've got the similar gradient to what existed before. I'm going to go in with the shape tool, and I'm going to select the rounded rectangle tool. I'm going to change it from pixels. No, I'm going to leave it pixels for just a second. We could do a path, but we haven't covered that yet this semester, so I'll leave that alone. I'm just going to quickly make a shape. Now what I should do, oh, I made a terrible shape. No, the shape's fine. It's just that it's the same color as the background, so that's causing some issues. All right, so I'm just going to eyeball it. What you could do is position this exactly. And if you turn on your guides, I have my guides off right now, and you move something around, your guides will start popping up telling you how far you are where. Another thing you could do is select multiple layers and use up at this toolbar here, align, or the options bar, sorry, align vertical centers and then align horizontal centers. And then once you've got that, just make sure that you've snapped this into place so that it's in the center. There you go, and voila. I was able to do that because, turn that off. Yeah, you're able to do that because the background image is the same size as the entire piece. All right, so that said, all that nonsense going on, the reason I did that was all I wanted to do is get a selection. So I'm going to control click on that layer, pop over here, and make a mask. And voila. I masked it in the wrong direction. My apologies. I do that a lot. Hold down the Alt key, press mask. There we go. So I turn that off. We now have rounded corners. So I kind of stumbled through that one. Sorry about that. But in short, what you want to do is go to the shape tool, which is by default this little custom shape tool. Go select the rounded rectangle tool. And you can change the settings to be whatever you want on the rounded rectangle tool. You have this right here, the radius of the roundedness. You can increase or decrease that. Create a shape on it. And if you do, we'll talk later about paths and shapes. If you know how to do that, that's fine. Otherwise, do a pixel shape. And then you can cut out a rounded shape using the masking techniques we went over in class. All right. So other than the resolution, it was spot on. Excellent, excellent job. Let's go ahead and stop this video. I see that we're coming up across half an hour here, and we will move on to the next one in the next video. See you in a minute.